focus on your culture. But don't just take it from me, take it from our guest today who recently sold his business. Welcome to the Field Famous podcast, brought to you by FieldRoutes, a show that shines a light on the field services industry and dedicated professionals that grind every single day on their journey to success. I am your host, Dr. Christopher Fasano. Before we begin, I want to remind you that the best way to receive new episodes of this show is to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, your favorite pod player, wherever you find a podcast. You will find the Field Famous podcast. The show is also available in a video format, so you can go to YouTube. The best place to do that, go to befieldfamous.com. Right there, you'll find all the links and the YouTube links. Give it a subscribe. And if you're really enjoying the show, please be sure to leave us a 5-star review. That way, it'll help other people in the industry, in the space, find this show. Our guest for today is Peter Schopen. Peter is the founder of Schopen Pest Solutions and currently the owner of RV There Yet Pest Consulting, which I'm going to ask him about the name in a second. Peter, are you ready to be field famous?
I have goosebumps. I'm ready to go.
Yes, that's the best answer I think I've ever got to that question. So, I mentioned to you, the way we start this is introduce yourself, let everyone know your current role, and then we're going to go back and we'll start to get a little progression of your journey and how you got to where you are today.
All right, very good. So I recently sold Schopen Pest Solutions, and so I thought I'd be semi-retired by now, but actually I'm busier than I've ever been, which is a good thing for my wife. And so basically what I'm doing right now is a lot of consulting work with RV There Yet, which I know we're going to talk about here in a moment. I'm on the University of Purdue's committee for their annual conference. I'm also working with Purdue University behind the scenes on some projects we have for continuing education. Okay. I'm still writing for PMP magazine.
I see that you're right. Do you enjoy, have you always written? Is it a passion or no? You just sort of, it's a thing.
Well, going back to my history, I was a sports broadcaster.
Oh.
And I also wrote for newspapers. And so, yeah, I've been writing for a long time, ever since I was probably 19 years old.
Okay. All right.
And PMP was just a blessing to me. My first year in business, when I knew I was going to start Schopen Pest Solutions, I approached Marty Whitford at PMP and said I had an idea for an article. Sink or swim, we'll call it Startup Diaries, and we'll kind of follow along as Pete Schopen either succeeds or fails. Either way, Marty had a great story. And so they agreed to it, and I've been writing for them for 17 years now. Clearly, we succeeded. And it's been just an unbelievable thing to do with Marty and the crew over there.
That's such a good, it's very smart. So what was your thinking there? It was a way for you to promote the business. It was a way for you to get more in the space, or you just saw it as a cool opportunity to get aligned with this new venture?
Chris, my big thing has always been in this industry has been training. I want to raise the level of pest control across the board. So I thought if they could document what I was doing, and if I fail, great, then people learn, don't do this. If I succeed, then it's a blueprint for other people. So for me, it was always, in fact, I wasn't even expecting to get paid for it. I just wanted to do it for fun. But Marty is very gracious, and they've been paying me for doing it. And the first one we did was actually went out as a, this is going back 17 years, so it went out as a blog. This is when blogs first started.
Yep.
I didn't even know what a blog was. Marty said, well, we're going to put it on the internet. And I said, well, no one's going to read it. But of course, people were interested immediately with that type of article. And so Marty reached out to me. He was going to do me quarterly blog. He reached out to me and said, you know what, we're going to do this monthly. So I wrote another one. It was a huge success. Careful what you wish for.
Then it became...
Right. Then it got into the magazine. And so it's been in the magazine for about 16 years. Yep.
That's
now
awesome.
What we're doing is called Startup Stories, where I am interviewing and mentoring 5 pest control companies across America. And we're documenting how their companies are growing this particular year.
So I live by this philosophy in marketing. I come from a neuroscience background, and the brain's job is to filter out as much as possible because it's got a lot to do. What it can't really filter out and what it prefers to engage with are things that look like itself. So if I can see myself in someone else or something else, I'm more likely to pay attention to it. I'm more likely to engage in it because I can it's beneficial to my survival. It's beneficial to me as a being if I can see myself or my experience is somehow there. So the challenge in business and marketing is, like, this is the genesis of this show, if you will. The people listening to this show hopefully see or hear a little bit of what you're about to tell in their journey, in their life. And they're going to be like, wow, I'm going through that right now. And it's going to stick to them. It sounds like a similar concept to what you're writing about, which is like people can relate very much to my story. If I'm failing at this, other people are failing at it. So it's sort of along those lines. I imagine that's part of it. And I imagine that's why you got such a great engagement, right? Because people can really feel it.
I think it was twofold. Number one, people are addicted to stats.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I've always felt like Schopen Pest Solutions to me was a game. Now, it's a very serious game because people's lives are at stake, pay their mortgages, their car payments. But I always looked at it as a game. In fact, there's a fantastic book called The Great Game of Business. I give everybody a chance they should read that. And as I was reading Great Game of Business, I realized, well, this is exactly what I do at Schopen Pest Solutions. I open everything up to my employees. I open everything up to the readers of PMP Magazine. I let them in on everything that we're doing. So that's the first thing. People like to compare themselves, how they're doing. Second thing is we learn from failing.
Yes.
Right? You learn a lot more when you put your hand on a hot burner.
Yep.
Then you get a vacation to the Bahamas. Okay, you're going to learn a lot more from burning your hand. And so what started out, clearly I succeeded because we sold our company and we did great. We were growing by 25, 30% a year. But what was interesting was in my articles, I always wrote about my failures. Because I say, hey, this is how I screwed this up. Don't do this.
Right.
And so it was twofold. I think people like comparing themselves to see, and that's an email I always get all the time is, hey, Pete, I've been following you in PMP Magazine, and boy, our growth is very similar to yours. And I like to go, when I open the magazine, the first thing I do is I go to your graph showing how you're growing your company. So I think they like that, but also, like I said, they like to see the failures and make sure they avoid them.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, I'm a numbers and the data guy. One of the things I always tell my team, the power of data is, and that when you come to a place, it's an article, it's a meeting, it's a room, and you're about to say something and talk, it can always be viewed as, well, that's what you think. It's your opinion. When you have a numbers and you have data or you have a graph and you have this supportive information, it takes that away a little bit. It's not so much what I'm saying. I'm actually just showing you what the data shows. You can disagree with this if you want. You could disagree with me, but to disagree with this, you're disagreeing with what it is. So I've always loved to make that a centerpiece of any sort of piece that you're bringing, because again, like you said, people first, they like to watch and look at that, but it also removes you a little bit from it, and people can kind of judge by just looking at the number. So I think it's very effective in a presentation always to support what you're doing with the actual number behind it, right? It gives a little more transparency behind it.
Yeah, that's why KPIs are so important. I mean, I know KPIs is a 5 years ago thing, but they're still important to today. I love baseball. I'm addicted to baseball stats.
That's where the stats go.
Absolutely. So many stats, but it really works. If you like the movie Moneyball and things like that, the stats really do work. And it's no different in pest control. I agree with you 100%. The numbers don't lie. If you got a technician who's getting 20% of the callbacks, well, there's a problem. He needs more training, right?
Right.
And so I'm a huge stats guy.
Right. So last thing on this, and then we'll get into the stuff, because it's a funny story. I coach my son's little league team, and he's 10. Okay, he's 10 now, and so now it's becoming a little more competitive. Now it's like you play to win, and they have certain rules about play, but it's you play to win. At some point, baseball is a sport; you got to win, so you play to win. So I have all of the apps. You know, if you're using Game Changer, Peter, like there's these apps, right? And they get you all the data. So I make these spreadsheets and charts. I have all of these data, and I go into with the other coaches. I'm like, hey, so check this out. Like little Bobby here, his average is misleading, but look at the percentage of time he gets the ball in play. He's like 85% he's getting it in play. And
you are speaking my language.
95% of the time when he hits it in play, it's going to the left side. So like we can use and they're like, you're crazy. And I'm like, I am crazy. But in 3 weeks when it matters, you're going to come to me and say, hey, who should we put at the top of the order? Because the numbers don't lie, right? That's
when I had a travel baseball team for years with my sons. And when it got to 12, it was really, I felt like it's getting pretty competitive, right? The parents obviously were very competitive. But and I did the exact same thing you did. I had this kid named Nate. Nate was batting 195. Brutal. Just 195. But I batted him third. And everyone was like, why are you batting this kid? He never gets on base. I go, he never gets on base without an error. I go, but he does get on base because he puts the ball in play. And 12-year-olds fumble the ball.
Yep.
And so they fumbled the ball. And I said, he's batting 195, but his on-base percentage, if you count errors, his on-base percentage is like 500. It's ridiculous.
Correct. Yeah. And like in the leagues where fielding can be loose, it's more valuable to have someone that's going to get up there and put the ball in play, and then is someone that's going to try to walk, right? Because as they get older, they can throw a little more strikes, but they're less likely to field it cleanly. So I'm with you on that. All right, good. So we're simpatico on that. So data important, and you've not only demonstrated that you like it, you've demonstrated that it was successful in your end goal, which is that you were able to build and grow and sell a business. Right. So tell me about how this is one of my favorite questions. Like, how do you got into pest control, or how you got into lawn care? Because most of the time it's not a straightforward story, right? So tell me about where that entered your life.
Sure. My dad was an old Orkin guy.
Okay.
Back in the 70s, he was an Orkin guy. Did very well with them, was one of their top salesmen in America. I mean, he was unbelievable. And so I kind of grew up around it, but I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. So I went to college, Elmhurst College in Elmhurst, Illinois. Okay. And I did pest control for 4 years to pay my way through college.
So you worked in a pest shop. You worked in a local, like a
my
tech.
dad's.
Oh, your dad's. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I was a tech.
You were tech out in the houses. All right.
And I paid my way through college being a technician for my father. And then I was a sports broadcaster for about 10, 11 years. And then we had and this is where you say the story turns. We had a death in the family. Mm-hmm. My father-in-law came down to Raleigh, North Carolina to be with us for the birth of my son. I had 8 off days a year because I was a sports broadcaster. I broadcast on Thanksgiving. I broadcast on Christmas. I broadcast on...
What sport, by the way? Sport specific or no? What was...
I did pretty much everything, but college football, college basketball, and minor league baseball were my big 3. Okay. Minor league baseball. All right. And so I was broadcasting literally 358 days a year. And so I had like 8 days off a year. And so my son was... We knew he was going to be a C-section. He was breached. He was going to be a C-section baby. So we picked a Monday, as long as he didn't come early. We picked a Monday. My in-laws came into town from Chicago to Raleigh, North Carolina to be there for the birth. They got to see my son Trey born. They went out for dinner that night, and my father-in-law had a massive heart attack and died that night.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yeah.
No, my God, I'm so sorry. That is terrible.
It was really terrible, and that was 25 years ago, and it was one of those things that was so devastating that my wife and I were we were lost. We didn't know where we wanted to go.
How old was he, Peter? How old was he when he?
Oh, I think he was 57.
My mother-in-law passed at 55, 54 from a heart attack sudden. So we went through that whole thing, complete out of nowhere. It
out of
turns
nowhere.
Everything upside. Everything goes, like everything. Sorry.
1 minute. That's okay. I feel bad for you too. And
I've been there.
My condolences to your family.
Yes.
So that's what turned me back to pest control. Was I turned to my wife and said, "Listen, I just don't have. I want to be a father,
right?
To our kids, and I don't want to be on the road all the time. And so the death of my father-in-law really we've refocused on family. So we moved to Chicago. I know how to do 2 things in this world, Chris. I know how to kill a cockroach, and I know how to broadcast a college football game. I have no other talents in this world.
That's funny.
And so I asked my dad, I said, listen, I need a job. And so I went back to work for his company, Mid Central. And within 2 years, I was a GM of the company. And then 3 more years later, I got that itch, you know, I love my dad. He's my best friend in the whole wide world. But I said, man, I think I can do it bigger and better. And so I went out and started my own company after working with him for about 5 years.
And what was that like, conversation with your dad? Was he very supportive, or?
He was pretty supportive. I mean, like I said, he was my best friend, and there were some things happening within the company family. It's always family, right?
Yeah.
There were some family issues within the company, and I just didn't want to be a part of it anymore. And so I approached him and told him what my ideas were, and he had business cards printed up for me that said Benedict Arnold Pest Control. And,
that's great.
That's a true story.
That's
it's a true
awesome.
story.
Do you still have them? Do you still have the?
No, I don't.
That'd be awesome.
I know. But
was it the same
Benedict
area
Arnold.
of service though, Pete? Like, was it this? So you were in the similar. So you were a competitor.
He wasn't in Wisconsin. So I started up in Wisconsin and kind of worked my way back down again.
Okay. All
and
right.
So for the first 4 or 5 years, we weren't really competitors, but he's my dad. He loves me. And so he started referring work to me.
Oh,
I get a phone call from my dad, said, hey, Mrs. Johnson needs help. And so it was kind of cool.
How long did where did his business go? Is it still in operation or no?
He passed away about 6 years ago, but then my 2 brothers continued on the company, and it was a really hard thing. We went from having 26 technicians down to 2 technicians now. It's just one of those things where I saw the writing on the wall, and I knew we needed to make some emergency changes within the company, and I caused a lot of the problems. I knew that. I over marketed. We spread ourselves too thin. I knew a lot of things needed to be fixed, but he was really excited with the growth. He was excited working with his family, and he didn't want to make those changes. So, so anyway, there's a lot of reasons why I went off and did my thing, but it's still in existence. Mid Central still is a thing down in Aurora, Illinois. My brother Drake still does it, and he's doing a good job.
So you're pest in your family. Your pest control sounds like it was your dad, and then you have brothers that were in it.
So many people. I've got 2 nephews, 3 nephews that do it.
Okay.
I've got one who's one of the top salesmen for Orkin in America right now. Wow. He's annually receiving he flies to Atlanta, flies to New Orleans, gets all kinds of awards. He's doing a great job with Orkin. My brother Drake, my brother Eric are both doing pest control. My nephew Ethan was doing pest control for Orkin. So yeah, we're all there.
All right. So you go out on your own. We know the story now, but then did you find, like, in your first year or two, like, maybe this is different, or was it exactly what you thought? Or was there no hiccup right away? What was the main differences that you encountered when it became yours?
No one understands what it means to be an owner unless you're an owner,
And you're responsible for other humans and things like that.
Right, and it's not only that; it's the bills. It's the bills. It's the paying the mortgage. You're still paying the mortgage on your house, and you're trying to figure out how you're going to get these customers in. Scheduling, health insurance. I mean, there's so many things involved when you're an owner that even if you're a general manager of a company, you don't have as much. Clearly, you don't have as much skin in the game as an owner does.
Correct.
Right. The owner's the one who has the sleepless nights during COVID. The owner's the one having sleepless nights when a technician gets in a truck accident. And so the first 4 years I was by myself. I was pretty happy. It was just me. I was making tons of money. The company I was growing it really quick. But by that 4th year, I knew I needed help. And so, but I knew if I was going to start hiring people, that it couldn't be like a sputtering, like hire people, then wait. Right. It had to be, you had to put the gas down, man, that pedal, put your foot on the gas and just get it going. Yep. And that's what we did. First year, I decided to hire somebody, hired 2 people. And then I just exponentially kept hiring after year until we got to about 50 employees last summer.
Wow. So what do you think, looking back, what were some of those early, maybe this is just maybe my own sort of bias, but what were some of those growth strategies that you leveraged early on, right? Because there's those, people look at it and go, well, there's knocking is a big thing where people get going in certain places. That's the route they choose, which they can get a lot of customers in quick, right? But they churn down the line a little bit faster. What was some of the growth strategies early that you looked at that you think that were successful?
I started my company at a very weird time. I still did phone books. I was 17 years ago. Phone books are still a viable alternative. In fact, in a lot of instances, the only thing you could do to get your company going. So the first 3-4 months I did door to door, but it was, there's no packages or anything involved. I was just handing out business cards, really. I went to,
not the Benedict Arnold ones, I'm assuming. You didn't.
No, not at all.
Okay.
No. And then I went to every single real estate office in southern Wisconsin and northern Illinois. I mean, I hit every single real estate office and handed out business cards. And those people, those real estate agents, really were the ones early on who helped me get my company going. And so that was great. I got to meet a lot of home inspectors, got my name out there, the home inspectors, got my name out there, the wildlife guys. And that's how I really started networking. I joined a couple of networking groups, like a BNI type group. I also became a big member of the Chamber of Commerce. I very involved in the Chamber of Commerce. All those things helped me grow my company. But back then it was Yellow Pages. It really was Yellow Pages. About 12 years ago, Service Magic started coming into play. And I started doing a lot of Service Magic, which of course become Home Advisor, which of course become Angie's List. And Service Magic back then was great. I mean, it was cheap. The leads were fantastic. As long as you answered the phone first, you're gonna sell it.
Is pay per lead model? Was that what it is? What you pay per the lead you got, or is it a?
Yep. It definitely was. And so that's what we did. So I did the first. So about my 5th year in business, I started doing Service Magic, and then I was closing on 60% of them. It was fantastic. Started a great referral program called Bug Bucks. And I made a little dollar bill with bugs all over it. We'd give it to customers anytime they referred other people to us. So our referral program was hot. It was fantastic. And then, we at that point, we started doing other things like Thumbtack, Angie's List, Yelp. Eventually it would be Google local ads and things like that.
And then you got your map and all your review. Then you started building your digital reviews. So you ran the gamut. You evolved as the time evolved. But by the time you got to that digital space, you had a reputation. You had your name out there. So I imagine that helps build those reviews and get those things going quicker. Now, you mentioned, obviously, this wasn't a perfect road for you. I'm assuming you stumbled, and I'm assuming you hit some blocks, and you wrote about them in your, as you mentioned. So can you let everybody know, what were some of those? If you look back on your journey, can you identify places where you hit a wall and you were like, man, or was it on key growth steps that you had a hard time getting over? Just talk to us a little bit about some of that.
We all make mistakes, and I did document a lot of them. I had not finished my first year in business when I tried to hire a technician. I didn't have enough customers. I did not, and so he kind of died on the vine, and I've always felt horrible about that. A few years later, we were growing so fast that, and I was always in the field. I was a hands-on owner. So I was pumping out $18,000, $19,000, $20,000 a month myself. Wow. I was still taking all the sales calls. I was still doing all the billing. I was still doing the routing. I mean, it was nuts. And what happened was I almost let my Illinois certification lapse because I forgot to go to my CEUs because I was so busy, right? I was out there, I was hustling. And I didn't go to any CEU classes. So I got a postcard in the mail one November that said, your license is going to lapse on December 31st. And I had to get 9 credit hours. Well, it's November. No one's doing credit hours in November. No. So I was lucky. Iowa they're the last ones of the year. They do theirs in November. So I went to Iowa and I got 6 hours. Oh my God. But I still needed 3 more. So I found a Terminex branch in Kankakee, Illinois. Was anytime in the state of Illinois, especially if you're going to do recertification for your technicians, you have to also allow other people to come. And so I piggybacked the Terminex classes, and I got my other 3 hours, and that was like December 7th. Oh. So what
would have happened though if it lapses? What happens? You shut down, like you can't operate until.
I would have called the state and begged them, but until we would have got my certification back, we would have been out of business.
And when was that? That was like probably a key point, right? You were really cranking at that point in time?
Probably my 8th year in business.
Okay.
Yeah, probably my 8th year in business. I think I had at that point 9 employees.
Okay.
And we would have been screwed. And so it was a nightmare. So then my last big failure or change, if you want to call it that, was about 6 years ago. We had really bad culture in my company. It was like a frat house. And but we worked. I mean, my guys were putting in 12, 13 hours a day, but we were drinking beer at night and eating pizzas, and they were helping me call the routes, and there's no standard operating procedures in place on how we're going to call the routes or set them up. And so it was just like we were making money hand over fist, but but we really had a frat house type atmosphere. And so when I tried to get more professional, a lot of the guys are pushing back on me, right? And so what ended up happening, I bought a building. We moved everybody in. We started hiring a lot more diversified group of people, and they were just having a real hard time with it. And so I ended up, we got up to about 24 employees, and I ended up firing 6 of them because they just couldn't do
it. It was too
They weren't
too
rowing
stagnant.
the boat.
Yeah,
they weren't rowing the boat in the same direction that I was now, and I was trying to improve the culture. So we did some core values. We created core values. We created some leadership teams. I started hiring some managers, and we cleaned house, and we really did. Ever since then, company culture has been a real strength at our company. We did a really good job with it, and but those would be some kind of the failures I had over the years.
It does matter, culture at a company, right? I mean, people have debated. I've heard debates on this. Like, it doesn't matter. People have these core values. Like, what does it mean? It does really matter, because if you have that stale air in an environment of work, it's like it spreads. And once it has that, like, the biggest value are your people. If you're going to have a business that scales and grows, you need to retain the best people and keep them there and keep them happy. It's hard to do that if the culture's bad, right? I mean, it sounds like you ascribe to this.
I not only ascribe to it, I preach it. Most of the presentations I give across America when I'm traveling around the country and giving talks is on company culture. To me, it is the most important thing in your business. You can be a hard ass or you could be someone like that, but if you're not training your people, if you're not involved in your company, if you're one of these owners who kind of just, you're on vacation for 6 months out of the year, then you expect to show up and lead your people. That's just it's not going to work. Our company culture at Schopen Pest Solutions it's the best. The day I sold my company,
I was about to say, well, now it's a good segue to the sell, because with a good company culture, how does that get perceived? So go ahead on that thought, and we can start to talk about that. So
when I brought everybody in for a meeting. Every year we have a sexual harassment class we give, and so everybody knew it was coming. So we brought everybody in on a Monday for a sexual harassment class. We did the class, and then I stood up in front of everybody and said, "Listen, I got 10 things I want to tell you guys." And I said, "There's 10 reasons why you should smile every day you wake up." And I went through this whole monologue of why smiling is so important, right? And I'm going to smile right now. Look at me, I'm smiling, and you're going to smile. You have no control over it, Chris. You're going to smile because I'm smiling.
It's so true. Yep.
And so I explained to them about how smiling is so important in your everyday lives. And then I told them I sold my business. And as I'm doing it, my lips started quivering, like that, and I started crying. I looked out in the audience, and these big husky guys that are working for me, they're all crying. And then I left, and I let the Rollins people come in and introduce them. And then I left out a back door. I was in the parking lot hyperventilating, and my wife was trying to console me. I was a millionaire overnight, but, and I hate when people say that. I was not a millionaire overnight. I got a big payday,
correct,
but it took 17 years to get there. But
correct,
anyway,
right. Yes, but that's true. You got the money maybe overnight, but it wasn't an overnight thing. Yeah, no.
So I was in the parking lot crying and thinking to myself, I shouldn't be crying. I should be happy. This is such a big moment for me. But I was so sad that I was leaving my employees. And one by one, they all started coming out to the parking lot. And I go, oh God, they all quit. That's the first thing. Oh my God, they all quit. But they all one by one just came up sobbing and hugging me, and it was just it was both the best day of my life and the worst day of my life. And
but in that moment, you saw the culture that you built come together, right? I mean, it must have been such a great feeling that you could first of all be that emotional amongst the team, and then get it reciprocated back. Whenever you see reciprocal emotion like that, it tells you that you've made an impact on them, right? You have to have. There's no way you can get that emotional. If no one cares, no one gives a whatever, they're not going to care. But wow, that's a cool story. So okay, so the sale. So at some point, did it cross your mind? Like when did you start to be like, you know what, I'm gonna unload this. That's the goal. Was the exit always that, or did it just sort of pop up and like, now's the time, I'm seeing this? Tell me about that. I always ask people this.
Yeah, we had no succession plan. It was I have one son who's going to be a lawyer in North Carolina. He's finishing up school right now. I got another son who's going to be probably an orthopedic surgeon. Okay. He's going to school in in Iowa right now. So there was no succession
You needed
plan.
that payday overnight, Peter. You got a lot of kids in the grad schools there.
I'm hoping they'll take care of the old man someday.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
So they, so I knew there was no succession plan. So my goal, I wanted to get onto the PCT top 100.
Yep.
That was my goal.
Yep. We hear that from a lot of people. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so we were really close. And but Rollins was very generous. The Oust Group brokered a deal for me that was, I just couldn't refuse. It was one of those deals where, I knew that an offer like this doesn't come along very often. So I was very grateful to Rollins, very grateful to the Oust Group that they could broker such a deal. And so it had nothing to do with being greedy, had nothing to do with I was burnt out or anything like that. It was just a good opportunity. It was a good thing. Yeah. It was a good opportunity. Yeah.
So I was reading about the things you wrote about the sale. I believe it was, I don't know if it was the most recent article. It was an article I was reading about it. And, oh no, I lost my train of thought. Oh no, Chris, we were just talking about the brokering the deal. So this is something I don't know if everybody understands, but you don't know, I'm assuming you didn't know how to sell a business and the legalities and the paperwork and the negotiations and such. So there are people that helped you with that, correct? And so can you talk a little bit about that? You don't have to get into so much of the detail, but the process, because I imagine it might be a daunting thing for people to think like, how the hell do I do this? I have no idea what, they're going to take advantage of me. They're going to, so how did you find that? And tell me about the process.
There had been a lot of pest control companies at various organizational meetings or Pest World, things like that, who had pulled me to the side and said, hey, when you're ready, come talk to us. But I didn't know what the first thing about selling a company, clearly. And so Stuart Oust was somebody that I was friendly with. We're both Christian men, and we both had great cultures at our company. We loved our employees. And so I knew he was somebody that I felt like could find me a company that would take care of my employees. And so that was the first thing. Stuart took care of everything after that. In fact, Stuart's sons were just phenomenal. His son, Daniel, is just a rock star. I love all of his boys, but Daniel and I really hit it off. And they took care of everything. They babied me. They told me what they needed at different increments.
So they match made. It sounds like is this matchmaking? Is that what it is? They take your company and they find you a suitor, if you will.
Yeah,
for doing this.
They did.
Okay.
Yep, they did, and that's what exactly it is. It's their suitors. You have Zoom meetings. You go out for dinner with these people. It's quite a process, and it would be really tough to do it. For a company of my size, it'd be really tough to do it on my own. I would never been able to do it. They found me my lawyer and everything.
Back quickly to the culture thing. So when you're in these conversations and now it's matchmaking, there's suitors and they're out there, and there's a big element of this is how much are they going to pay. Let's not say that doesn't matter, and that's a big part of it. But they're going to come in and take over this company where your employees still work. So I'm assuming, or maybe not, is that part of the calculus? Like, how are they going to treat the team, or like in a sale, is it assumed that everyone's going to be out, or you're looking at this and saying, I want to do the best I can from a financial perspective? Yes, but I also want to make sure the company will go and people will have a home. Is that part of the calculus?
Answer is C. Yes, Chris.
Okay.
Answer is C. Yeah. The last thing you said is perfect.
Okay.
That was my biggest concern was A, how much can I get?
Right.
And B was, I don't want any changes for my employees. Yep. I don't want them to feel like they've been kicked to the curb.
Yep.
And Rollins has done a really good job of making my employees feel like they're a part of something bigger.
And do they still consult with you at all? Or you still have a hand in, or no, it's not part of the agreement? Like
not so much. Okay. No, not so much. They really want my people running the show now.
Yeah,
they don't want to have to keep relying on Pete Schopen as a crutch.
Yeah, that may make sense. Yeah.
And they have their own systems in place, and everything. So it's they've been really good to me. I got really very few complaints, and they've been good. So far they've been really good to my employees.
So before we close, I want to talk about your current venture. That's keeping you busy and keeping your wife sane. So you're not at home. I say to my wife, you're not going to be able to deal with me if I retire. She's like, you're not going to retire. That's the thing I can tell you.
I would be like a squirrel on heroin.
Yeah, she'd be like, there's no way you're sitting here with the energy and the conversation that you want to have with me all day long. I love you, but like you're going to have to do something. So maybe I'll get into Little League as a Little League statistician and offer that as a because by the time I retire, I imagine that'll be a big business the way things are going. First of all, the name. I got to know the name, the reason behind the name.
We call my consulting that I'm doing is called RV There Yet Pest Consulting. And that's because my wife and I've written about this in PMP Magazine. My wife and I, we want to travel in the RV as much as humanly possible. And I want to go to people, right? So if there's a company and there's a company in North Carolina that's struggling, and then I wouldn't call it bar rescue, nothing like that.
Right.
Just a company looking, hey, Pete, we're going at a 10 or 12% clip. We know you grew at 25 and 30%. Can you help us get to that level?
That's cool.
Then I want to drive to them. I want to meet with their people, and I really want to. I want to jump into their company and see how they're doing things. So that's where the name came from, RV There Yet. RV There Yet financially, RV There Yet, culturally, and that's what we want to help people do.
That's cool. Does that actually materialize? So you get in the RV and you go?
Okay, so here's a funny story, and I know we're over our limit here.
No, it's fine.
We had my very first on-site consulting company was in the Bahamas. Clearly, I didn't take my RV to the Bahamas.
You can get to a certain point, but then you got to get out.
Yeah. So they flew me. But then very recently, I was in Greenville, South Carolina, working with a company down there, a great company. And we took our RV there, camped out. I did a 4-hour training session with their employees. It was fantastic. And so I'm going to be in Indiana this summer.
Do you get content? Are you taking a video of this, of you in the RV as you roll into the pest control shop and stuff like that?
No, I am not nearly as fancy as that. Maybe you guys can help me down the road.
That sounds like a great set of content for we marketers are always content is king. We're always looking for ways to get good content, user-generated content.
You and I, maybe we could talk later.
That's what's up. That's a little mini series on the RV on the road with Peter going down. That's what's up. I love that. That's really, really smart. So the wife goes with you. She travels with you.
She loves it. She loves the
awesome.
RV.
See, that's awesome.
Loves it.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really great.
And I'm never really far. I'm never really away from her a lot, right?
No, I know.
I give like a 1-hour presentation here, a 4-hour presentation there, and the rest of the time it's her and I just
that's awesome.
Sitting by the campfire. Yep.
That's what's up. That's awesome. Well, congratulations on everything. It sounds incredible. Before we close, I got a little rapid fire. I do this with each guest. These questions are benign, I promise. Let's do this real quick, and then we can close it out. And right before we end, I'll ask you to give the people the information on where maybe they can find you rolling up one day with an RV to help them out. So here we go. Whatever comes to your brain quickest, that's the answer you're going to give me. So we go in 3, 2, 1. All right. Text or talk?
Talk.
Dark chocolate or milk?
Oh, dark.
Same. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
Morning or evening?
Morning.
Salty or sweet?
Salty sweet.
That one's tough. Favorite day of the week?
Saturday.
Would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or be able to talk to animals?
Speak every language in the world.
How long does it take you to get ready in the morning?
7 minutes.
I think I'm less than 10 too. Scale of 1 to 10, how good of a driver are you? According to you, not your wife or anyone else.
11.
11. Invisibility or super strength?
Invisibility.
Rats or...
Oh, that sounds terrible.
I don't want anyone ever to see me. Rats or mice?
Rats.
Bees or wasps?
Wasps.
Wow. Everyone picks the bee because everyone feels like they have to pick the bee. If you're really hungry, would you eat a bug?
Yes.
And is this the best podcast that you've ever appeared on?
Franklin Hernandez, I'm sorry. Yes.
At least you've appeared on more than one. People will tell me this is the only show I've ever been on, so I guess it is. I'll take yes from you in our little world, and then you can tell the other people yes when you go on their show. It's a good rule. It's unwritten. It's okay. It's all good. Peter Schopen, I really appreciate it. This is an incredible story. Congratulations on all your success. If people want to learn how they can get your knowledge and brain power in that RV rolling up, where can they go? Where can they find you?
I love phone calls because I love to talk. So they can call me at 847-529-2847, or they can email me at rvthereyetpest gmail.com.
That's what's up. So we'll have that information too in the show notes for anybody that's listening. You could just click and look right there. We'll have the information. I appreciate you taking a little bit of time to be field famous and let everybody know about your journey. Because like we said, I think we both agree the best way to learn in life is to learn from the journeys and learn from the failures of others. Yeah. So I appreciate yourself putting yourself out there, and you continue to do so. Oh, where's the article? It's in PMP. They can go there and find it, right? To read more of those articles?
All they got to do is type in Pete Schopen or PMP. Either way, they're going to find the articles. Yep.
All right. Awesome. Peter, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. Great talking with you.
Thank you, Chris.